Welcome to Health, Wealth, and Happiness, a fast-paced, informative hour-long program dealing with physical, emotional, and mental health issues, consumer information, and money management, as well as the arts, theater, travel, entertainment, social, and civic events. Brought to you by the University of South Carolina School of Medicine Specialty Clinics, the Institute for Partnerships to Eliminate Health Disparities, the Newberry Opera House, the South Carolina Philharmonic, supplements manufacturer A.J. Lanigan, Leon Jones Insurance, and the Mitchell House and Gardens. And now, here's the host of Health, Wealth, and Happiness, Gary Posick.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Health, Wealth, and Happiness. Here's a rundown of today's program. This being the fourth Wednesday of the month means that Rusty Brzee, founder and owner of ScoreNavigator and CreditDNA, is my guest. Today we're going to talk about how credit and the lack of credit affects our lives. From 1:30 to 1:45 each Wednesday, Don Shaver stops by. Don is a travel expert, and today we're going to talk about air traffic safety. Now, if you're one of those people that's afraid to fly, obviously with the crash landing of 2 planes in the past 10 days, doesn't make you feel like, boy, I want to get on an airplane. And Don will talk about air traffic safety during his segment of today's program. My final guest of the day will be Christy Coggins. She's with the DOKO Rodeo, and she'll be talking about their rodeo that will take place in Blythewood this Saturday evening, starting at 8 o'clock. So I hope you'll stay tuned for the entire program. And welcome back, Rusty Brzee. Good to have you here, Rusty.
Gary, it's good to be back. Gary, I want to just do a couple shout-outs, if I can, to all the listeners, not only here in the United States, but also in Canada, since we're broadcasting live. And I wanted to say happy birthday to my twin boys who turned 1 year old today, Jericho and Jonah.
Well, that's fantastic. That's great. And, well, you know, when we've talked in the past about credit, and one of the interesting things that I think a lot of people really don't take into account, and I know having spent 32 years in the credit industry, you're well aware of this. When we talk about divorce in the United States, and I would think if you stopped and asked 10 people, what's the number one cause of divorce? They would either say, it's either in the bedroom or it's infidelity. But in both cases, that would be the incorrect answer. The number one cause of divorce in America is finance. Financial problems cause more marriage breakups than anything else. And I got a feeling that a lot of that has to do with people not understanding or analyzing their credit data.
You're correct, Gary, and I've seen that over the years, but it's more and more over the last 2 to 3 years where I've had more hands-on being able to actually go out and speak to people in the workplace, see what's going on, just in personal friends situations. There are so many people getting divorced because their finances are messed up, and it has to do with their credit situation. They're going out getting high rates. They're just going out and just doing all kinds of crazy things. And a lot of times they're doing it behind each other's back. You know, so where the infidelity was, you're running around on your spouse in the workplace or things were going on. Now it's affecting people's lives with this whole credit thing going on in the world.
And to think that you can get away with bad credit is a joke, because you can't get away with it. It affects employment. If you have a bad credit score, or if your credit history is slow payment, no payment, or low payment, you may not be told this is the reason why you're not getting a job, but employers look at this, and you know that for a fact. I'd like you to speak to that issue first.
I sure will. The employers today, and I say out to Canada as well, in both countries, you know, when you go out, the human resource department will more than likely in today's time, pull your credit because they want to see, are you somebody that's going to come to work on time? Are you going to come in with a good attitude? You know, do you have other things affecting you? And what I've seen from these big major companies, Gary, is that they'll offer medical insurance. They'll offer, I mean, I've even seen companies where if people are running into marital problems, they'll pay for counseling. They'll put people that are alcoholics into some sort of alcohol program, some drug programs. They're trying to reach out to their employees to offer all of these benefits. But when I talk to them about that, what always comes back is the issue with credit. And they go, we don't know what we can do to help them because we know their credit situation is a result of some of these other things that are going on in their lives. And to me, and they've agreed, you know, these big companies, is that it has to do with the education, that there's not enough real information out there for the public to understand their credit, to get involved into credit. Some people, old school, don't even want to mess with credit, but then when it comes time for them to try to and help their child get on to college, to help somebody do this or help themselves, they're not able to because they've never properly established the right number of accounts to qualify to get a good rate so they don't get into a bad financial situation.
And when they do get into a financial bind, when they absolutely positively got to have money to pay their bills and there's no way they can get a loan, they'll resort to what I call payday loans. And you think interest rates on credit cards are high? My goodness gracious, take a look at what some of these people are paying in terms of interest rates on short-term borrowing of $500 to $1,000. It's mind-boggling to me. Inform this public as to what you see in that. And, I mean, this is just awful.
They need to absolutely stay away from those things, and that's the problem. There's so many offers that are out there. I can ride here in this town and go down the main boulevard, and you see all these title ponds, title this, title that, bring your car stuff in, and usually these people are winding up buying third and fourth hand automobiles from a buy here, pay there type situation because they've never addressed the issues with their credit. They haven't taken the time to really understand it, and then they start seeing these offers. I see them all the time. I probably get 20 emails a day. You know, we can deposit $1,500 in your account today. You know, we can take this off your paycheck. We can do this. We can do that. There's so many crazy offers that are out there, and people are jumping on them because they say, well, you know, I can get it today. To me, it's the old wimpy thing. If you remember the old Popeye stuff, you know, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. And so these people are getting themselves in a situation because they do not know the impact of what it's going to do to their credit score. So, Gary, the way that I'm looking at it right now, and I think that it's our obligation as people that have that information, is we need to pass it on to others, but we got to pass it on inside of our family to our children. We owe it to them so that they're not going to go out into the world and run into the same mistakes in credit as we have by not knowing the right information.
Funny you should bring that up, and this is a bias on my part, doesn't have to be yours. One thing that concerns me greatly are the numbers of young people today that when they start life out as a married couple, they see their foundation, their base of where they're going to start in terms of standard of living, of being where their parents are right now, Rusty. You know, I want to start where mom and dad are right now. Maybe.
Gary, you're correct. Listen, listeners too. You know, I told you at the beginning of the show, I'm wishing happy birthday to my twin boys who are 1 year old today. But I also have children that run at 24, 22, 18, and a 3-year-old. And so I absolutely know exactly what you're talking about. they want to be where you're already at today if things are going well for you. If things aren't going well for you, they're going to fall into that same pattern if you don't do something about it.
And, I drive through fancy neighborhoods with homes starting at $250,000 up, and I see tricycles in the driveway, and I say to myself, what did I do wrong? What on earth are these people doing to make an income that, my God, I think back to when my kids had tricycles in the driveway, and I sure wasn't living in a home like this.
It is. You know, it's because in today's world, I don't think we're ever satisfied. And so we're always reaching out to try to make something for ourselves, to be happy. And then there's also people that always want to go out and try to match or beat the other guy. You know, if this person has this, then I want this. And it's okay to get those things. It's okay. You work hard. You want a nice house. You want a nice car. But you should get stuff, if you can't pay cash for it, to be able to get it at the best interest rate. And so you got to know about your credit for that to happen.
And when you are up to your eyeballs in debt, newsflash, you ain't going to get the best credit rate.
No, you won't. Your credit scores are going to be low, even though you have a lot of credit, but you've maxed out your stuff. And then you're relying on outside situations, whether it's your employment, disability, anything, to keep coming in order to be able to pay that. But, you know, when you start making just minimum payments on credit cards as you start using them to shop with for food or medicines or just other types of entertainment, you just get out of hand. And then you go, well, you know, I'll pick up some extra money maybe next month and I'll be able to put that towards that. But then all of a sudden, you know, your child on the tricycle flips over, and then you got to get them down to the doctor, and then there's an expense that you didn't count on for that month that you have to take care of. So then your credit card goes into the next month, and you're paying minimums, and you're never getting out from underneath it.
And you look at the numbers of people that get into debt and can't get out of it due to a medical emergency. Most of us don't have a rainy day fund, Rusty.
And today you don't. And I'm seeing more and more of that. And being in the credit industry for so long and watching people, I have found out when people came out to purchase something from me or got involved into the credit companies that I'm involved with, a lot of their problems were medical. They didn't come in and say, well, I just did this. You can see it on their credit file. I want to tell the listeners a story of a man that was referred to me about 6 or 7 years ago out of Arkansas, and he was trying to get a loan. He lived in a manufactured home. He owed $75,000 on it, and he was trying to get $25,000 to take care of some collection agencies that were calling, some medical things. And the bank there was no way they could help him. Number one, they couldn't get an appraisal in that town for that to happen, but there was no way they were going to be able to get this guy a loan because of the issues with his credit. So I personally gave the guy a call instead of having somebody in the office, and I wanted to find out what was going on. Why did this guy want this money? Well, he had told me that 3 years prior to that, his 14-year-old daughter was riding in the car, and they got into a car accident. A friend of hers was driving, and his daughter was paralyzed to the neck. And he had to take care of her. He was making probably more money in the city than anybody else for normal work stuff. He made great income. He had a nice house he had to get rid of, got into the manufactured home, got in and did the things he had to do to take care of his daughter, and she had constant care. Well, it caused the divorce between him and his wife. And the only concern that he wanted with this money, Gary, was that he wanted to pay these doctors the money he still owed them because they saved his daughter's life. And that's what this guy wanted to do. So I was able to negotiate by speaking to the doctors who said this man absolutely doesn't owe us any more money, got the collection stuff off of him, and he didn't have to pay anybody anything, and he was able to get on with his life. But this man was suffering, but he was in such rejoice that his daughter was still alive, and he had the ability to take care of her, but he wanted to make sure that anybody that did something for her was paid. And there's a lot of people that are out there, Gary, like that. And they're hurting and they're suffering right now because they don't know which direction to go in because there's not enough true information out there to help them.
And Rusty, look at the working poor. They don't have a catastrophe like the one you've just described. These are people that are working minimum wage. All they're trying to do is make their monthly house payment or rent payment and pay utilities and put food on the table. They just aren't making enough money to do all those things. And so when they go for a loan, they're paying a high interest rate. If they're slow in paying, even if they are paying their debt, if they're slow in paying, it's going to increase the amount of interest rate they're paying. Their credit's going to be affected. It's just a vicious circle. You know, we highly criticize people on being on welfare, but my God, there's a whole segment of our society, working poor, that are thrown into that same basket, and through really no fault of their own. They are brushed with the same paintbrush unfairly.
Well, there's so much single parents now. So remember, you're talking situations where if there's two people in the workforce that are still suffering, but now there's single parents on both sides, both men and women. And so they're having to deal with that responsibility themselves. And a lot of that comes now to more, like you said in the beginning of the show, more towards the financial and credit issues than it does even the infidelity. Because they can't handle it anymore. This person wants to get this person can't do that. They argue who managed the money the wrong way. Why did you do this? How did this happen? They split up, and now they're down to the one income.
And then who suffers the most? Well, the innocents, the kids. Through no fault of their own, they're the ones who are living below the poverty level. Your little babies who are 1 year old today, look at the little babies that are 1 year old living with single moms who are making minimum wage. What chance do they have in life?
And it's tough, but what I've found out over the years, Gary, and I might be wrong, I'm not an expert on all of this stuff, is that, I was a child who grew up with an ill mom and a father who worked all the time. And so we were without resources. I grew up in the projects, moved from there. We did other stuff, and thank God I've been very successful in my adult life and business and doing things. But what I cared most about? I cared about my parents. They're going to be married now 58 years in another couple of weeks. My dad still holds my mom's hand. They're still madly in love with each other, and we always got a hug, and we were told we were loved. And that superseded any kind of stuff that my friends were getting materialistic-wise. And so as parents, sometimes what we do is we say, well, we want to give our kids more than what we got. We want to do this, we want to do that, and we relate it more to material. Can I get my kid this good car? Can I get them this? Can I do this? Can I buy them this? And then we get ourselves in such a financial crunch because we think that's what our children need instead of just a hug. And sit down and do family time, sit at the table together, do these things together, and show them how you can do that with other people and how you can pay it forward to them on the knowledge that you have and what you've learned.
Funny you should say that, because I was having the same conversation with a friend of mine yesterday. My two sons are 30 and 28. We always end our conversations, whether they be via the phone or in person, with, I love you. And what's amazing to me, Rusty, is what kind of feedback I get from my two sons when I will say to them, or they will say to me, Dad, I love you, and I'll say, I love you, son, and we'll give each other a hug. If that's done in front of a friend of theirs, the feedback they get is they'll say, my God, you still hug and kiss your dad, Josh, or Caleb? You still do that? My God, that's wonderful. I never do that. I never get that from my dad.
And I hear it all the time. My 18-year-old son just finished high school, and he's on his way to Texas to play to go to college and to play baseball out there. And I've done it to him when he's come off the football field and stuff. First, I'll kiss him on the lips. I mean, that's my baby boy. And so I have that. But what I've been able to do for him because of my experience in credit and working with stuff, I started establishing his discipline and platform at credit at 16 years old by putting him as an authorized user on a couple of my credit cards. And now at 18 years old, on his way to college, my son has a 761 credit score. He has his own credit cards. He has his own stuff. Now he doesn't go out and spend it, obviously, because we're not from the type of family that you got to go buy. You know, but if he needs it for gas or this or that, then he knows to charge it and then pay it. Charge it, pay it, charge it, pay it. And it becomes a pattern. And so in life, if we show these things to our children, we hope that they'll continue that right road. And unfortunately, we did not grow up in today's credit age with credit scoring, credit data, so many people getting credit, so many things that were going on. That just wasn't available 40, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And so it is today. So we have to get our education. We got to stay on top of it, and we got to pass it on to our children, and they'll pass it on to others.
That's absolutely true. It is a habit, and of course your son is certainly going to be a leg up when he does become of age and starts his own family and his own life. We'll take a break and come back with more right after this.
Heart disease, joint pain, allergies, eye care. The list of health needs we're faced with goes on and on. But it's comforting to know there is one healthcare practice in the Midlands with the expertise to take complete care of you. University Specialty Clinics. Only at University Specialty Clinics will you find a team of 200 doctors who are expert physicians and world-class medical educators. Whether you need a simple physical exam or need complete complex medical treatment, you can trust the doctors at University Specialty Clinics to take special care of you for life. Call 255-3400 for an appointment. That number again, 255-3400. University Specialty Clinics is owned and operated by the University of South Carolina School of Medicine, where we practice what we teach.
When credit scoring was introduced into the marketplace in the mid-90s, who really knew the impact it would have on our lives today? The 3-digit number determines the rate of financing we get on our home and auto loans, insurance rates, and even employment. But do you know how your credit score is calculated, and is it accurate? Do you know what to do to raise your credit score or change errors in your credit report? ScoreNavigator.com at just $19.95 a month not only gives you the most accurate credit score in the industry, it will tell you how to increase your credit score. Listen to information about you and your credit on the 4th Wednesday of the month from 1 to 1:30 right here on Health, Wealth, and Happiness. And that would be today. And the founder and owner of ScoreNavigator and CreditDNA, Rusty Bressie, is my guest today. And we're talking about credit and how it affects lives. One of the things that you discovered through the help of a guy by the name of Kenneth Ward, and I'll let you speak about him in a minute, is coming up with a mathematical logarithm that worked with regard to taking credit scores, which range from 350 to 850, and coming up with a formula to help people understand the complexity of what we call a credit score and how that affects their lives, as we've been discussing throughout the show.
You're right, Gary. And Kenny is he's like a son to me. He's been with me for a little over 11 years now. And Kenny's a coder. And when I came up with the algorithm, the formula, the theory for what we call point deduction technology, it was given to me. You know, people look at me, and when I'm talking to you now, I start to get the hair on my arms come up. God gave me the ability and the code to put this together. Now, Kenny had to put it into programming with me, and what this does is it analyzes the credit data, and it looks for where most errors occur on a credit report, because studies have showed, and they've given that to us, but it assigns a number from 0 to 100 plus on each one of the credit accounts that you have, but it also will tell you how many points you may obtain by getting certain other accounts and doing certain other things to add to your already existing credit. And again, we call that point deduction technology. So it analyzes it, and then it gives you recommendations on what you can do to not only recover points, but to be able to gain points. And we've been able to utilize a report and a score that TransUnion, one of the three major credit bureaus, supplies to our customers through ScoreNavigator.com. So when they go through, they get a TransUnion report, and they get a score because the score is a measurer, so they can see how the score increases by doing certain recommendations by the score simulator, the money simulator, and the point deductions that are included into it. But it also to show them if they make a mistake, how many points are actually going to lose from that measurement from the score that TransUnion provides with that credit report. So I do want to thank the Credit Bureau for giving us a chance and making this all possible as well.
What I think is interesting, and I found this out the first time I had Rusty on my show, was that for the most part, not only do you find out an accurate score, but solutions to your credit data and how you can increase your score. Most of the time, you can do that in a very short period of time. In other words, one shot at ScoreNavigator.com for $19.95 is all you need. It's not an ongoing thing you got to do month in and month out.
No, and we find that out. We find that out because it gives them enough information. You know, sometimes people will sell products where you only get like partial stuff. So that makes you have to do something again and again and again. And how do I figure this out? You know, or it's a one-time thing. You know, for $19.95, they can continuously log in for 30 days, and they can see their stuff, and then they can go back and work it. Okay, well, now I tried this. Okay, now I've done this. So it's not like, man, I just paid $20 and in an hour I can't get back in. They can go back at any time in that 30-day period of time, and it's not something that's a reoccurring payment. So if they say, okay, well, I want to see, you know, they had to do a lot of stuff. Now I want to see, you know, where I'm at with it. Then they can pay the money again and go forward with it.
On the other hand, if you do have real financial problems and real credit problems, whether you be an individual or a business, CreditDNA may be your answer. What's the difference between ScoreNavigator and CreditDNA?
What CreditDNA is, and that site is CreditDNA.us, is that CreditDNA is a full-service credit management company. In Canada, there's a company that's a credit management company. They're called ScoreUp.ca. And so what that entails is a full-fledged educational. It's a full-fledged, because they have a credit coach, but then they also have the ability to have their reports updated for them, all three bureaus, or in Canada, in that case, one or two bureaus, to where they can continuously log in 24/7, see what the changes have been made, see the updates, see how many points they've recovered, and what advice they will be given if they decide to apply somewhere for credit or to pay on any particular accounts. So in other words, they have somebody that's going to be with them for, they can even go 3 months, 6 months, or 12-month program with that company, with CreditDNA.
Well, that makes a great deal of sense. And how can people get in touch with you if they're interested in either one of these programs?
They'll go to, for the credit report and score and the point deductions and those tools, they'll go to ScoreNavigator.com here in the United States. If they want to speak to somebody, they'll give them a free credit analysis at CreditDNA.us. And in Canada, again, it's ScoreUp.ca. And then they'll be able to speak to somebody there, and then they'll be able to go over their credit situation and, if need be, enroll into their credit management, credit education program.
Rusty, I thank you so very much for coming and sharing on Health, Wealth,